this episode of Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. Today's guest is a voice actor, history buff, avid hiker, and host of not one, but two radio shows, Don't Touch My Stuff and Uncle Con's Diner. Please welcome the extremely talented Conrad Sienkiewicz to the Local Artist Show. Conrad, how are you?
Great. Hello, gentlemen. Good to see you both, Rich and Wibo. Wonderful to be here.
Good to see you, Conrad. I've never been a while.
What do you mean? I bump into you all the time.
I know. You know I got to mess with you.
I haven't seen Wibo this excited in a long time for a guest. So you
got Conrad on the show, man. Got Conrad, the man. I'm all dressed up, my shirt and everything on.
Now, I know you met Wibo many years ago. For me, the first time I ever met you was through our mutual friend Joseph Timothy Quirk, when he was putting together what is now known as Nutmeg Junction.
Yep.
Which, for people who don't know that by now, we've talked about it, and I don't know how many different guests I've had that were part of the Nutmeg Junction world, but it's a radio show that pays homage to the old radio serials such as Flash Gordon and many of the others in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. And you were the original host of it, the narrator, whatever your title was. But you you did some voice acting as well, but for the most part in the beginning. How'd you get involved in that?
Joe invited me in, as so many of us have stories about how did you get involved? Well, Joe Quirk invited me in. Joe has a certain way about him. You want to work with him, and he has these very creative ideas that you just want to be involved in. So he reached out and he told me, what some of his ideas were, and I liked what he was talking about. So I jumped on for some episodes, and it was fun because you could wear some different hats, directing, acting, producing, and Joe is just amazing because he just does them all, and it's like you never see him change his hats. He just does it, just does all the different things.
Very seamless.
So, very. Yes.
Yeah. And for me, just you said it perfectly. He makes it where you want to work from. I've done so many different projects with him. More like, Rich, you want to be a part of this, without him even finishing the sentence? Yes, I'm going to be a part of it. And so originally, I was only going to be an interview on that show. And he goes, you want to do a couple of voices? And I haven't left yet. That was I don't know how many years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing of where he's taken that show. He had a mission. He said, one of our first meetings I remember, because you and I are probably two of the originals. And he said that, I want to do this for year 1, year 2, year 3, and it's a worldwide phenomenon now. So I'm really proud to be a part of that. And but just like you, I do it whenever I can, and especially with COVID now, it's a little bit harder to do things, but he's been doing it through Zoom.
Yeah.
Speaking of harder to do things through Zoom, because of COVID going on, you are also part of the Goshen Players. And now that COVID has lifted some of its restrictions, so people are starting to come out of the woodwork. Recently, you were part of a play that was at the Goshen Players, the Goshen Theater. Tell me about that.
Yeah, actually, supposed to be involved, and then just ended up being involved minimally. But spring of 2019, I was all set to be the stage manager for Lost in Yonkers. And I was super excited because I had never been a stage manager before. And the director, Leah Dimitrick, was very experienced. So I was looking forward to working with her. But then March of 2019, COVID hit and the world changed. And the show was mothballed. We thought we would be able to put it on sometime in the summer of 2019, and then we realized no, it's not going to happen in 2019. We thought maybe it would happen in 2020, but now it's happening now. Unfortunately, because of my change in work, I couldn't continue with the show. But she's got a great group of people on board there. My wife Lydia has been the house manager also. So Goshen Players always do a wonderful job. And they especially do comedy very, very well. And this is a Neil Simon show. So it's a real neat show if people get a chance to go out and see it.
Yeah, and right now, we're recording now. It's the end of October, so I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to be running. But if this is out is it going to be running through November? So people who are watching this,
no.
Fortunately,
Yeah, I think it just might be the end of, I think it has one more weekend after this. So I think the first weekend of November, and that'll be it.
And you've been involved with them for a long time, is that correct?
Yes. I'm gonna say 18 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
for 18 years. Yeah. I'm terrible with dates. I'm very bad with dates. But I know I've been married for 17 years, and
Remember
Lydia and I
that.
met. Yeah. And
That's important.
it is. You gotta remember that one. You gotta
Okay.
remember that one.
One
But,
thing your wife will not let you forget.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. But we met at through Goshen Players. So
Oh.
that's why I want to say I think it's been like 18 years.
God bless you.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved with them?
My first show was at Thomaston Opera House, spring of 2001. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And then I did Music Man, and while I was doing Music Man there, I met a couple of people, Roberta Koffel and Jeff Savage. Yeah, you know Jeff. And Jeff was like, "Oh, you've got to check out Goshen Players because it's just the nicest bunch of people." And I was having a great time at Thomaston Opera House for sure. But Jeff, kept saying that Goshen, there's just something special about it. And he was absolutely right. So, I auditioned for some shows there and ended up, like I said, meeting my wife, Lydia, in one of the shows. We got married shortly after that. So we've been, she's been involved for a very long time. Her parents had been involved in the, starting with the Players in the 1950s. So it was something she was very used to and very active with. So, we met there and we continue to be very active there, but we'll be involved in other theater groups as well.
When did you get the acting bug? Was it as a child?
I guess 5th or 6th grade, when Mr. Kramer, our elementary school teacher, used to put on a Gilbert and Sullivan show every year, and he would cut it down to like 45 minutes. And so I got the bug back then, like 5th or 6th grade, and did a little bit of theater in high school and had a good time with it. And then didn't do anything until 2001. I had just gotten divorced, and I was in a very dark, sad, depressing state of mind. And I saw the show It's a Wonderful Life at Thomaston Opera House. And what blew me away was that my landlady had a part in the show. And for some reason, I guess I never read the programs too closely, but I always thought community theater was done by people who had professional, theatrical professional jobs in the daytime. And then when they come back to their homes, they volunteer for the theater. So I thought to be in community theater, you had to have a job in radio or a job in theater or something like that. I don't know why I had that crazy idea, but to see my landlady, who was just this very, normal, regular person on stage, I was like, wow, I thought you had to have an in, I thought you had to be, in the profession to get on the stage there. And then I learned, no, these are just regular people that have some time and some talent, and they audition. So that's what got me started at Thomaston Opera House, was just seeing a friend in a show, and she was not, a professional actor or anything like that. She was just a friend having some fun up there on stage.
You know what? Well, that's what I love about Connecticut, because there's so many great local theaters. I mean, we have Seven Angels in Waterbury, Thomaston Opera House, the Repertory Theater in Milford. We have the Repertory Theater in Watertown. And I've gone to so many shows, and the prices are very reasonable. The talent is exceptional. And you can have a great night out and see a great play. And I've gone to so many. That's why I'm so happy that everything's starting to come back slowly but surely. And I've enjoyed so many great shows. And I do want to check out the Neil Simon show before it ends. I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm so glad to see people like you keeping the theater alive in this area.
It's pretty impressive. And I think of something like Goshen Players. They started, I believe it was 1948, right after World War II. Bunch of guys getting back from the war, trying to go back to normal. And they decided to put on a show in the Old Town Hall. And when you think about theater groups like that, you know, they were around when television got really popular and everybody was watching television. Yeah. And then in the 70s with multiplexes, everybody was going to the movies with the multiplex. And then with the 80s, cable television and VCRs. And now, you know, there's so many ways you can get entertainment. And yet, if you put on a good live show, people will still come to it. And you're right, here in Connecticut, even in, you know, a quiet section like the Northwest Corner, sometimes it almost feels like there are too many shows because you want to see Jeff's show and you want to see Joe's show and you want to see this one show and that one show. And it's like, well, you know, you only have 1 or 2 weekends. You can't get to all of them. But yeah, there's just no shortage of really good live theater. And it's survived. It's survived, you know, the streaming age. It's survived, you know, DVDs, VCRs, multiplexes, television, all that stuff. There's something about being in a room with other people and, you know, experiencing something, you know, live right in front of you, for sure.
Yeah. What is your favorite role? Do you have a favorite role that you played out of all the years?
I've never been leading man material.
No, I don't believe
but
it.
I love but I love a small role. Yeah. If I can steal a scene, if I can leave people at the end of the show saying, wow, I wish that guy had more stage time. Yeah. You know, then I'm happy. I think some of my favorite shows, I must say there's something about performing at the Warner. You know, it's the biggest stage in the area. My daughter and I have been in a couple of shows together. I was a pirate in Peter Pan, and she was one of the littlest lost boys. And then we were together in Seussical the Musical, and I was General Schmitz. And that was a lot of fun because I got my own song. So that was really nice to have you know, the spotlight for 5 minutes. So yeah, I think, you know, those were, you know, 2 of my favorites. It's not always about the role as much as it's just about, you know, the funness of putting on a show. You know, a lot of times at Goshen, you know, I'm working backstage. I don't even have a part. And yet it's still a blast, you know, doing sound or helping with the lights or doing something backstage. You know, every show is memorable. Every show is a good time. Every show is a unique combination of people. Some people you might work with again, some people you might never, but you'll never have that same combination again, which, you know, is kind of bittersweet.
I've heard that a lot from the different people that we've had on the show, or even friends that I have. They said the camaraderie with a great cast is even, well, it makes the show obviously 100% better because when they're having a great time, the audience is having fun because it flows right into the audience where you can tell like they're having the best time. And I can think of so many shows. I mean, I know people that have had maybe 1, 2 lines and they loved it because they were just a part of that production. And I agree with you. Did you ever have a moment where you're because this is like the scary part about being live. Do you ever have a moment where like, what is my next line?
I tell you, I've luckily I've always been around people that are good on their feet and can help feed a line. But yeah, I mean, there have definitely been shows where, you know, you realize you dropped 3 or 4 lines. Yeah, and most of the time the audience doesn't know because they haven't memorized the show like you have. So yeah, I try to forget that and just kind of live in the moment, you know. Keep your acting face on, keep the dialogue going. You know, and most of the time people don't ever notice, so you can forget about it.
Well, I could say also, even when they do notice, I think sometimes the audience just laughs because they're having a good time. They know that everybody's human, and it makes you more human. Because I worked in radio for a while, and I don't know if you ever heard the name Litch. He was a big DJ.
Yeah.
I worked with him back in the 90s at WHCN, and the program director actually told him, he goes, your show is too perfect. It's a funny, what I'm going to say next is kind of funny because this is how they do radio now. He goes, if you want your show to be perfect, come in early and record it, which now they do. They record 3-4 shows.
Yeah.
But he goes, well, every once in a while, just like stutter, cough, do something, let people know you're human. And I think that doing live shows, if somebody messes up, you're like, all right, and you'll get like people clapping because they're in with it. They're not like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. So it just makes it more fun, even if that does happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about WAPJ is because it's live radio. A number of years ago, I listened to Sirius radio and I thought, wow, this is cool. So many genres, so many things to choose from. But then I quickly realized, the DJs were just pre-recording stuff. They weren't, it wasn't some man or woman, looking out their window and saying, wow, check out the snowflakes coming down, or wow, the wind has really picked up. And I just love real local radio when the DJ can look out the window and say, wow, we've got some lightning flashes or something else, but just to be there in the moment, to know that those people really are there. I think definitely adds to the magic and the humanness of it all. And maybe that's the appeal too of live theater, for 2 hours, real things are happening right there. You don't have the benefits of editing or cutting things out. It's the real deal for 2 hours, and that's pretty exciting.
Like flying Walendas here on that tightrope. You can fall anytime.
Yep.
Speaking of WAPJ, I agree with you because I have a show that's on actually this show is on WAPJ, and I love it also because, like as you said, they're live and they could talk about what's going on at the very moment. But also I like the fact that John Ramsey, who runs that station, is such a great guy and he knows exactly what he's doing. And he has every DJ has a distinct personality. They have their own show, their own genre of music they like to play. It's not just all classic rock, all pop rock. One day you'll hear punk, and next day you'll hear reggae, so you hear bluegrass. And I turn on WAPJ, and I love that about the station because I'm never bored. And there's not too many stations I could say that. A lot of times I'm like, I'm sick of this, and I'll turn to another station. Not with WAPJ.
No. And there's just such great freedom at WAPJ too. I don't think listeners pick up on that. But yeah, as a DJ there's just terrific freedom to do what you want to do. And John oversees everything, and we've got a couple of other key players too. But basically, you can play what you want, and they take your ideas and they help you tweak them a little bit to make them even better. But most of the time, if you have an idea, you can run with it at WAPJ, and that's real neat.
Let's talk about that because right now, as I mentioned in the intro, you have 2 shows. Uncle Cod's Diner.
I just have one.
No,
I have one.
Okay.
Yep. I think during the height of the pandemic, I had 2 there when I had a little more time and there were more DJs that were out. I kind of jumped in with that second one, Uncle Con's Diner. But then, once life started to return to normal a little bit, I have just the one now.
Now, what show do you have now?
Don't Touch My Stuff.
Okay, that's what. So that's the one you do with your daughter.
Yes, correct. Yep.
What kind of music do you play in that show?
Whatever we feel like playing. That's, again, part of the freedom of WAPJ. You can have a show for 1 or 2 hours and play things from any genre. So I like that because I have, very varied musical taste. So I like the freedom of being able to play, whatever things strike my fancy, or whether it's old stuff or new stuff, and taking calls as well. That way too, if somebody has a request, it's harder to say no because, pretty much any genre goes. So I'll play just about any song on there.
You say no to me?
When did I say no to you, Wibo? Wibo comes to the station in person and he taps on the window to get his request.
I see my chair sitting down in the front.
Yeah. You sit down, they got the speaker on the wall there, you listen to your song, and then you wave goodbye.
I've seen pictures of him on Facebook with his lawn chair on the sidewalk. Having a good time. Talk about somebody who has a little too much time on his hands. Wibo's another guy who's extremely busy. What I like, one genre of music I want to talk about, because I was surprised that you like this, but I love it, is we're at the end of Punktober, which you're a big punk fan, and I love so many different bands. So I remember one time I was talking about that. I mean, you like Bad Brains, Cro-Mags, Minor Threat, Fugazi,
Yeah.
Murphy's Law, Ramones. I mean, you love all that stuff.
Yeah. There used to be a show on there, Monk's Punk. I think it was on Tuesday night. It was 1 hour long, but he would play like 30 songs because most of the songs were just like a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Monk, if you're out there listening, I'd love to have you back at APJ. I miss his show. It was really, really good. I enjoy punk, so it's fun because, like for 3 weeks, in the month of October, my show focused on punk rock. This Saturday, the last Saturday of October, I'm going to focus on funk. We're going to celebrate Funktober for one Saturday. Wibo, tune in. I got some good funk. Yeah.
Who are you gonna play for fun?
Yeah, I can do whatever genre I like.
I love that. I love the freedom because I can tell you, I was in terrestrial radio, and the biggest station I made it to was 106.9 WCCC, which is now defunct. Actually, that's where I met John Ramsey. He used to work there at the time back in the 90s. And they told me, first thing they said when I gave them my tape, "Oh, you have a personality? Yeah, we want you just to say the name of the song, the time, and the temperature." And if I didn't play a song, I had to write it in there why I didn't have enough time to play it because the sponsors would be mad. It was just, and this was in 92, 93. And I remember I went on a cruise. Now it used to be WDRC. Now it's the Whale.
Yep.
And I went on a cruise with them, and I was talking to them. They're like, "Oh my God, you were in radio when it was fun." And I was laughing because when I was in radio, they said, "You missed the good times." So it's funny, like each generation, they're like, "Oh boy, I wish I can only imagine how worse it's going to get." But for funk, what are you going to be playing for funk? I'm curious about that.
Let's see. I was working on my playlist. And I will have Gap Band, Ohio Players,
Look at you.
Arcays, Kool and the Gang, Little Earth, Wind and Fire. Of course, we got to have some Parliament Funkadelic. You can't have funk without Parliament Funkadelic. We'll go back to Sly and the Family Stone. Bootsy Collins. Little Shaka Khan. So, I got a good list going.
Oh, yeah, I cannot wait. And what time is your show on so my viewers can tune in?
2:00. Saturday is at 2 p.m.
I know the caller is WAPJ. What's the number again?
89.9 FM. And you can also stream live on their website, wapj.org. And then we're on a whole bunch of apps like the TuneIn app or the Audials app. Wherever you like to find radio on your smartphone, you could probably find WAPJ.
Very good. Now, besides, acting, besides voice acting, besides being a radio DJ, you're also very, very busy with the church.
Yeah.
You do a lot of work for them.
Yep. Yeah. Trinity Episcopal Church right there on the corner. Kind of funny that it's same corner as WAPJ. Their neighbors right there. It's a good corner. But I've been involved at Trinity Church for a while. I served as a warden for several years there as well. And it was funny because while I was a senior warden spending a lot of time there, my daughter was kind of pushing me, you should get a radio show. You talked about, bucket list wanting to have a radio show, but I was just too busy with the church. But I told her, once I'm done being a senior warden, we'll look into it and see if we can do it. So sure enough, once my time ended as a senior warden, I was able to get a little break and go over to WAPJ. But still active with Trinity Church, still involved there.
What is Operation Overflow?
Oh boy, Operation Overflow. Operation Overflow started about almost 20 years ago, I guess, out of some people at Trinity Church that were concerned that people were sleeping overnight outside. People were coming to church on a Sunday and either, seeing people in the courtyard or, finding their stuff in the courtyard and just really feeling sad that, people are spending the night outside the building. So Operation Overflow started with a handful of concerned volunteers who wanted to give those people a place to stay for the night. So we typically have 3 or 4 churches that operate a month at a time to allow the homeless to come in for a night, get a warm place to stay so that they don't have to find a church or, someplace else to sleep outside. Unfortunately, with COVID, the program had to close. The churches, a lot of the churches closed. Even now, some of them are only open partially or just open for services. So last winter, and now again for this winter, there's a different program staffed with 2 people who are paid. So it's a different program. So Operation Overflow is sort of on hold for now, trying to determine, what direction we'll go in. But like I said, for now, it's being done by a different program with a paid staff. But yeah, for a long time, Operation Overflow was there, making sure that people had a warm place to stay for the night. We would typically run from early November until the end of March.
Great. Hopefully it gets back to how it used to be once
Yes.
we get back to almost being normal, which is
Yep.
gonna be hopefully soon. Now,
Yep.
I mentioned in the intro, you've done so many different things. One of the things that I like, and maybe it's an interest of mine as well, you and along with your faithful companion, Sirius Black, you're an avid hiker. I see you all over Facebook. You go to all these different trails. And I think just recently, maybe it was a little bit longer, didn't you complete a whole, was it the Appalachian Trail? Or there was one of the trails you did the whole, it took 6 years to complete?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got some of that right.
I knew it does. I know.
Yeah. I haven't. Yeah. No, you've got some good facts there. In Connecticut, there are 800 miles of blue trails.
That's it.
And yeah, they are not all connected. They are not all connected. Some of them are just a couple of miles long. Some of them are like 30 or 40 miles long. The Appalachian Trail in Connecticut is part of the Blue Trail system. So I think that's like 35 or 40 miles. And yeah, about 6 years ago, when I learned about the Blue Trails, I thought, wow, that could be a really cool goal to try to hike all 800 miles of them. And my dog really enjoys hiking, and he was just a puppy when I got him 6 years ago. So yeah, he and I have done 400 miles so far, which is pretty cool. So it's like, wow, it's, halfway done. And one of our more recent hikes, we finished the New England Trail, which is three trails that start down in Guilford, Connecticut, right on the shore, and then goes up through Middletown and joins the Metacomet Trail up by Hubline Tower, and then ends in Massachusetts. So, that took us several months to do, but it was really cool because we mapped the whole thing out, and, we did a line right from, Guilford right up to Massachusetts, cutting the state right in half, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so we've got 400 miles done. And a lot of times, we don't do new blue trails, but we just go to places like, Sunnybrook State Park, something like that, or Burr Pond, nice and local.
Burr Pond. Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to go out there. It definitely clears your head, lowers your blood pressure. It's good to be out there for sure.
I love going hiking especially when I was doing stand-up comedy and I knew I had a show coming up. Like you said, it clears my head. I would take a walk by myself and just go over my act in my head and just think about different things. And that's actually where a lot of my bits came from, just walking the trails for myself. My only problem was I don't love, but I have a habit of getting lost. I'm not really, I love the loop.
Don't do that, Rich.
Well, before I have a story to tell you about the Indian Council caves, but I want to ask you.
Yeah.
This is an interesting story. It involves the state police, the local police, and the DEP. But
oh my gosh.
Before I get into that, when you mentioned that you did a certain amount, do you stop at one point and then walk all the way back? Or do you have somebody meet you? Like, how do you, and then you start the next time at that point? How do you get to that point without having to start from the beginning again?
Yeah, when I first started, I did, a lot of loops and things like that. But then as I did more, I realized, wow, if I had a good hiking partner, we could, leave a car at one end, drive to the start, and then hike from car to car. So I have a good friend, Jason. We've done a lot of hikes together. And yeah, we'll meet at the trailhead, leave one car there, drive to the other end, and then hike from one car to one car. But yeah, if I don't have a hiking partner, then I'll just do, 3 miles in and then 3 miles back. I'll get credit for 3 miles, but it's really a 6-mile hike because I went in and back.
Yeah.
But yeah, having a hiking partner definitely makes a difference, and you can do a lot more miles that way. Yeah.
All right. So I'll tell you what happened to me. This was probably about 10, 11 years ago. At the time, it was my girlfriend at the time, her stepfather, her mother, me, and her cousin, which her cousin was is deaf. And the reason I bring that up was because she's very, very sheltered. Her mother didn't want her to do a lot. So we're like, come on, you gotta go hiking. And she was too afraid. She's, I'm afraid. I don't want, you're not, come on, there's gonna be nothing to be afraid. You're gonna see how great this is. Of course,
Nothing will go wrong.
Nothing will ever go wrong.
Yeah.
So I had a book of, the 50 best hikes in Connecticut. And in the book, it says, go to the caves and just come back the same way. But when we got to the caves, somebody said, don't worry about that. Just keep going straight around this way. I said, it goes back to the parking lot. Oh yeah, definitely. So we started at 3:00 in the afternoon. We're walking and walking and walking. It's 5 o'clock, walking, 6 o'clock. Then my girlfriend's cousin, she was freaked out. She just sits on the ground, starts praying. It's getting like, come on, we gotta go. 8 o'clock. We're trying to drag her. Like, no, she's crying. So finally, I saw a thing that said Old New Trail. I said, all right, let's see where this goes. And it came to a dirt road. I said, wait a minute. So I walked to the end of the dirt road and happened to at the time it was the flip tops. I didn't even have the cell phone. And I said, let me see if we can call the police. And they said, what? Where are you? And they're like, walk all the way to the other end of the road. And there was the state police, local police, and DEP waiting for us. Because I can't believe you had, and it was funny. We were 9 miles away from where our car was. And when I got home, I looked at another book I have, the map. And just like you said with the other trail, if I kept going straight, it went right into Massachusetts. We just there was no loop. And it kept going. And unfortunately, I have a habit of doing that because I like to try new trails and say, let me see where this goes. And one of the things is Hubbard Park, which is so easy.
Oh yeah.
I said, let me take a right over here. I end up in some guy's backyard in Southington.
Yeah. Well, that's why the blue trails are nice, because they're all blazed blue. So you need to stick with the blue. There's a book that's like as thick as a Bible, and it's got maps and descriptions, and it identifies the parking. And I mean, I take a whole bunch of precautions. I try to hike early in the morning. So if you do get lost after, 5 or 6 hours, it's only 2 in the afternoon. You still have daylight and all. Hiking with a friend. So, 2 heads are better than 1.
Yeah.
I always tell my wife where I'm going, where I'm parking the car. One of the reasons for posting on Facebook also is, if I ever did fall down, hit my head and knock myself out, God forbid, somebody can say, wait a minute, he was on Facebook and he took a picture of himself at this peak. And so, they would know to go there. So
Good idea.
Yeah. So
I never used to do that until a movie came out, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's based on a true story where he went into the woods, he didn't tell anybody, and then he got trapped in a rock. He had to saw off his arm.
Yeah.
When I saw that movie, I said, from now on, I'm gonna mention to anybody, I'm going here, I'm going over there, and that's a very smart thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie, but I know exactly what you're talking about. That's a nightmare.
3-4 days. And finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He had this little knife and just little by little sawed his hand off so he can escape.
Not good.
So, in one place I want to talk about my new girlfriend, my fiance, actually, her name is Sarah. She has in common with this. I see you hiking at the McLean Refuge, game refuge.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, her great uncle was former Connecticut Governor and Senator George P. McLean. And I was doing some So for people who don't know, he established McLean Game Refuge in 1932 as a wildlife sanctuary to preserve over 3,000 acres of meadows and forests he feared that would be lost to development and resource exploitation. So he gave that land away, and we were walking there. She goes, "Oh yeah, this is my great uncle." I said, "Really?"
Nice. Yeah, that's a real neat chunk of land, and they do have quite a few miles of trails there. No hunting. I don't think they allow hunting either, since it's a refuge. So it's nice and quiet. Beautiful place up there.
Are you a big hunter?
No, sir. Nope. Just like what's that, Wibo?
You a hiker.
I'm a hiker. Yeah.
What
with
are
the dog.
do you do any trails? Like, have you ever done the White Mountains? Any trails outside of Connecticut, or do you mostly stick in the area? Stick with the area.
Yeah, funny because my introduction to hiking came in the early 90s when I first moved to Connecticut. Ended up meeting some new friends, and a good friend of mine was trying to hike the presidentials in the White Mountains. And boy, oh boy, it was a big start to hiking with the White Mountains. You know, I'm not the type of person that pushes my body to the limit, or, you know, likes to work up a good sweat, or, you know, climb the highest mountain because it's there. I just want a nice walk in the woods. That's all I want, you know, see some neat things, be with friends. But yeah, that was my start to hiking, was up there in the White Mountains. And you push yourself because, yeah, there are some tough trails, but you know, the payoff is pretty neat when you hike a big summit in the White Mountains, and you're just, you know, you see the clouds, and you're above the tree line, and you just don't see too many man-made things up there. It's real gorgeous. But I'm really happy here in Connecticut, just, you know, doing the blue trails, and, you know, driving to towns I haven't been to, and certainly hikes I haven't been on. And yeah, you know, you don't necessarily get, you know, gorgeous views like the White Mountains. But, you know, there are some that are really nice, like Hoobline Tower. People's Forest has some really nice views from some of there also. So yeah, you don't really have to leave the state, but yeah, it's just, you know, a little quieter, a little easier in Connecticut, but you know, still a lot of beauty out there.
Now, are you familiar with the old Leatherman?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
For people who don't know, I had a book on him years ago, and I was so intrigued by it. So I started going to all the caves where he lived. He was, I think, from New York through Connecticut, and he did a round trip 365 days a year. And so he was very, very popular in the area. And it was where the teachers would let the kids out of school because they knew he was going to be coming around that time, and they'd feed him. But now it would be completely different. But so he has, like, I've been to the one in is it Watertown? I think he has a cave. Then he has one in Southington. And there's also one in Burlington, which I don't even know if I could find anymore. And then there's another one in Milford. So I've been to like a lot of different caves. I think his story is so interesting. The funny thing is, they really don't even know who he is. They have all these theories.
Yeah, still a very big mystery. But yeah, that loop that he did through upstate New York and Connecticut, people would say you could literally set your watch to it. People would know. You know, he would always show up at our town at about, you know, early afternoon. It was, you know, this cycle that he would walk, and only speaking French. So there were different theories that you know, he was from France, and there were these crazy theories that he was a jilted lover and he came to America to forget about his girlfriend. But yeah, and he wore this, you know, this outfit of incredibly heavy leather year round. So whether you saw him in the winter or in the spring, he was wearing this, you know, coarse, heavy leather outfit. Yeah, so he took a lot of mysteries to his grave. But yeah, it's kind of cool knowing that, you know, you've hiked some of these trails that this eccentric, you know, hiker did back in the day.
I remember one of the theories was that he married a woman. I think this might be the part of the jilted lover one, and he gave her father gave him a leather factory, and it completely collapsed, and he freaked out and just walked away. But he had all the leather with him. I actually, I think it was the Hartford Historical Society. They have his glove and a couple other, and I have pictures with that, and I'm looking at it, it's like, I can't imagine how heavy it would have been wearing that.
Yeah.
At least 30-40 pounds. And from what I remember, they actually tried, because he had lip cancers. He's like and they were trying to, they brought him to the hospital. He took off, and they made up a vagrant law trying just to get him up. I mean, now it's sad to say, I don't think people would show that much empathy for him. They're like, oh, he's just a bum, who cares? Now back then it seems like he was, you know. And then there was actually copycats too. There was Leatherman copycats. People would go in, they'd like try to get food from people because everybody loved Leatherman. But that's a very interesting story, and people who live in Connecticut, a lot of people do know about it, and it's I'm just very, very intrigued by that, because I think from what I heard, they wanted to they did dig up the body, but there was really nothing to it, so they couldn't even do any DNA work on it.
Yeah.
several years ago. Yeah. All right, but speaking of that, it's good segue, because you are, as I mentioned, a history buff. I love reading your posts. First of all, I love your Facebook post because you are like one of the few people I know that's not negative at all. You have all these positive. I learned so much from reading your posts. Like an example would be, since you're from Torrington, Connecticut, let's talk about former resident John Brown.
Yeah, John Brown, very, very controversial figure. I moved to Torrington about 20 years ago, and I always love local history. And it's always just neat because, I mean, local history makes up, our national history. So it's always fun to see, well, what local history do you have in your town? What are the things that the town is known for? Or who are the people that, were born here or lived here or died here or created here? And, when I learned that, John Brown was like the biggest name out of Torrington, I confess I didn't know a whole lot about John Brown. So, the more I learned about him, the more I thought, wow, why don't we see more John Brown in Torrington? And some people would say, well, he only lived here for 4 years, and, from birth until, his parents moved away and they moved to, upstate New York, and then he moved around, and, so he wasn't in Torrington long. And then there are a lot of people just debating, whether he was, this hero, or whether he was just this, crazed terrorist, this religious zealot. But I think that's part of what makes him so interesting, is that, we can debate him and we can talk about him, and you can make up your mind about him because there are just so many different angles to the man. So yeah, I think he's a very interesting person. And as our country starts spending more time looking at our race issue, I think the name John Brown is going to come up a lot more because he was, dealing with those issues, in the late 1800s there.
Well, for people who don't know, what exactly is he known for?
So John Brown is known for the raid on Harper's Ferry. All throughout his life, John Brown was incredibly poor. I mean, wicked, 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 wicked poor. And yet he dedicated his life not to trying to put food on the table for himself, but to free the slaves. You would think a guy who had all these issues with poverty and health and, losing his children, at early ages, you'd think he'd be more focused on his own family and his own well-being. And yet he spent his life trying to figure out ways to free the slaves. He ultimately purchased 1,000 pikes from Canton, Connecticut, to fix onto, like 6-foot sticks, with the idea that, we can raid the arsenal at Harper's Ferry. We can get these guns, and when slaves and freed Black people hear what's happening, they'll come and join us, and we'll grow and grow and grow, and we will, show America that the time for slavery is over, because now slaves and African Americans are armed. And John Brown succeeded for a number of hours. He got Harper's Ferry. He was able to maintain Harper's Ferry for several hours, but the people just didn't come out. The slaves did not come out. The supporters did not come out. Brown and his group of men were quickly overwhelmed, and John Brown was hanged in a matter of weeks. But that, I believe, with a lot of historians, that was the spark that started the Civil War. So a lot of people refer to John Brown's raid as the spark that started the Civil War. There had been a number of slave rebellions, but I think because this was a white man, I think a lot of slaveholders were very nervous about that. Like I say, whether you think he was a religious zealot or a hero or something in between, he's a great person to debate and learn more about and discuss. And I'd love to see more of him in his hometown here. There's so much John Brown in the towns he lived in Kansas, in upstate New York, where he also had a farm. And I just think it's a shame that here in his birthplace, he's not as well remembered and as he's not as pronounced and just not as publicized here in Torrington as he is in other places that he lived. So hopefully we can change that.
Well, look at Mark Twain. He didn't really live in Hartford that long, and they have his house.
Right.
And Mark Twain lived here. He lived here probably about just as long as, I mean, it was the last part of his life.
Yeah.
But people still say, "Oh yeah, Mark Twain, this is his house." So I think I agree with you, and that story is very, very interesting. I think it should be told, and I think it should be taught, and more people should know about it. And I love the fact that you're doing things like that. And speaking of John Brown, on the WAPJ building, he's part of a mural that was put up recently.
Yes, very exciting. That was what's that, Wibo?
It's looking good.
Yeah, it does. That was part of a statewide effort to get 39 Martin Luther King murals across Connecticut for the 39 years that Martin Luther King was alive. So in the towns that decided to participate, there were surveys that went out in each town to get ideas from people and say, okay, this is a mural, about Martin Luther King, but what are some of the other connections, and who are the people that are important to other people in your town? What do the people of this town want to see on a mural? So Torrington ended up with John Brown and the poet Amanda Gorman, which I just think is wonderful, because I love seeing a poet so big downtown. I love seeing a young person so big downtown. I love seeing someone of color so prominent downtown. So we've got Martin Luther King, John Brown, and Amanda Gorman on the same wall. And Martin Luther King and especially Amanda Gorman, bright, bright colors. And then there's John Brown in black and white, which I think is a really nice touch.
Great
So
contrast.
yeah. And it's great to have it on the WAPJ building. It's nice to see that whenever I go to the radio show. And yeah, it's a neat mural and it gets people talking, I think. And I think that's a good thing to have conversations about that.
It looked
Man,
good,
the
too.
story.
Yeah, it
What's
does
the-
look good.
Yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job. We were trying, Wibo and I are trying to get him on our show. We talk about it. When we asked him, he was still busy doing
He
the
was busy.
39.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So once I told him, I said, I'll get back in touch with you once everything slows down for you. But what is Amanda's story? Because I know John Brown, I know obviously Martin Luther King Jr.
Amanda Gorman, very young poet. I don't think she's 25 years old, if she's that. But she was invited by President Biden to read a poem at his inauguration. And she's a very interesting woman because she grew up with a very severe speech impediment. And in some earlier videos of her when she's talking, you can hear it in her voice. And she's worked tremendously hard with it. And when you think of someone being a poet and reading their work, you'd think other people would say, wow, I have a speech impediment. I really shouldn't be reading my work. If I'm going to write it, I'm not going to read it. But not Amanda Gorman. She worked on it. She continued to go forward. She didn't let that stop her. And she writes wonderful poetry. And you talk about me being positive on Facebook when it's such a negative world. Here's a young woman who has every right to be angry and every right to be fierce and every right to demand change. And yet here she is talking about change and talking about the problems of the country. But she talks about it in a way that says, we're all in this together and, we can work together on this. It's just something about her poetry where she's not afraid to bring up the hard, upsetting problems, but at the same time, there's hope in her poetry, which is really, really neat. And for a woman who's barely 25, I think she shows a heck of a lot of wisdom to her. So it's exciting to see her up there.
I'm very, very happy with I'm very happy with the people that they chose for that. And I drive by there all the time and I'm always, I have a smile on my face as I'm driving by it. But you also, I like the fact that, you're a history buff and you promote your friends as well. And there's one friend in particular that I learned a lot from you just reposting his name is John Mills.
Oh, yeah.
like just the other day, I learned about Prince Mortimer. I said, who the hell is
Yes.
Prince Mortimer? I just love the fact that, he was a slave and a Revolutionary War veteran from what I read.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, John is doing terrific stuff. And again, he's looking at local history, African Americans, most of them slaves or recently freed. And he's showing their connection. He's shedding more light on who they were, and trying to get more respect for them, more knowledge about who they were, and showing us that, a lot of the struggles that people are going through in 2021 are very similar to the struggles people were going through, 200 years ago. So yeah, John Mills, definitely check him out on Facebook. He's got a lot of amazing stories, and he's just this tireless guy working to educate people on history, and, discover more history. You don't have to have, a PhD in history. You don't have to be an archaeologist or something to get out there and do a little bit of research and talk to people and try to connect the dots. And it's very inspiring to me to see that and to see, how far he goes to learn more about people and shed light on them.
I think that's great because you brought up a great point. It's I think everything is cyclical, meaning that it comes around, goes around, or goes around, comes around. And I think that I hate when people are like, oh, we can't really teach this. That's not PC. We don't want to talk about that. I think people should talk about it. It may be painful to hear, but if you don't learn from history, it's going to repeat itself. And I love the fact that, what you're reposting and what John Mills is posting teaches people. It's like, this is what happened. This is, and I love, like, another person is Nat Turner I was reading about, and I learned a lot about him. Yeah. He's another 1800 slave, and there was a whole story about him, which was very interesting. So I agree with Conrad. Check out his site. And, but not only are you a history buff, not only are you a hiker, not only are you a DJ, you're somewhat of an influencer on Facebook, which I love. Meaning, and I got to tell you a story about this because somebody came up to me and said, I got to try this new restaurant. Because one of my friends on Facebook told me, and I said, wait, is your friend named Conrad? How'd you know? I said, I just had a feeling. I was in Torrington and somebody said that. And you promote, like, I'll give you an example. I'm friends with the people of Toothpick, and they love you, like BJ. And she was saying, Conrad puts up all these great posts, and I get more business because of him. And she was saying that she wants to have your daughter do something there, like some kind of painting, I think.
Yeah. My daughter Caroline is an artist. She loves to paint. Yeah. Okay. And it was funny because we were in Toothpick, and my daughter often has a sketchbook, or she'll start to draw on a napkin or something. And we're at Toothpick, and I think she drew on a receipt, and she drew some nice pictures. And I think she said, thank you for the delicious food or something like that. And then Billie Jane, took a picture of it, and she posted it, and she's like, wow, somebody just ate at our restaurant, and they left us this beautiful, drawing on a receipt thanking us for the food. I'd love to know who it is. And I'm like, I think I know who that was. And it was funny because I think I left my daughter a Toothpick because I had to go and start the show, and she just stayed there and doodled. So then, Billie Jane asked her, to come in. So they're working on, planning to do some painting there at Toothpick.
Wow.
Yeah, I love to support local businesses, especially I know how hard it is for a local restaurant to pick up and get going. I mean, you guys probably remember when Cafe 38 first started years ago. And, Tina had her challenges, and I know she was, trying different things, and she's like, oh, I'm not sure if I should focus on this or that, or go in this direction or that direction. And she had to take some breaks. And my heart really went out to her because I just saw, wow, it's, really hard, with a restaurant to figure out where you are and who you are and how you can make money on this. So my heart really goes out to new restaurants that are starting. Seeing places like Cafe 38, Rosa Vega Bakery, Toothpick, Four Corners. Now we have Taquana's Soul Food up. So I really love, especially early on, trying to let people know, hey, there's a new place. It's not an empty building. They really need help early on, especially just to get people to come in, try things. So especially when a restaurant opens up, I try to do what I can to get the word out, get the buzz out there, get people to try something new. And especially with downtown Torrington, because
Yeah.
you know, it's a really unique little place. And I think we're losing a lot of that in America. You know, you know, so many of the stores are big box stores. So many of the restaurants are chains. It's really neat to go to a little mom and pop place and really try some different stuff. And now with downtown Torrington, it's like there are so many different places to eat, you know, whether you're in the mood for Asian food or Mexican food or soul food or a hot dog or smoothies or whatever. So there's a real nice variety and diversity, and they're really good people that are opening up these businesses.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, your heart just goes out to them when you get to know them there.
I felt so bad just that we're speaking of toothpick. I know the story behind that, where I think it was February 2019. She had ready to open up, and then bam, the world shut down. And she said she has such a great idea of what she wanted to do, make it like a street thing in New York where people come in and get different kinds of food, and it's not that expensive. And I'm just hoping that, you know, that they do succeed, because I go there as much as I can. And I love that place, and the other restaurants you mentioned as well, because I'm in Torrington a lot and I do try to hit as many different places. But I think it's funny, twice it happened to me without people knowing that I knew you. Oh, I got to try this restaurant out because this guy. I said, "It's a Conrad." Twice. Yes,
Conrad.
It's so easy. It just takes a few minutes. You know, you take a picture of it.
Just a minute.
Yeah. Just, you know, take a picture of your food before you eat it, or take a picture of you smiling with your food.
I know. Post
it on Facebook. Take a picture of their menu, and, you know, tell people to go check it out. Yeah. So I really feel like I'm not doing much, but. You know, you'd be surprised how a post can really influence.
What most people do now with posts, unfortunately, everything turns political and everybody hates the other person because they don't think like. So with you, the reason I bring that up was because I like, even with your political posts, you're positive, and you're supportive of what's his name, Stephen? How do you pronounce it? Ivane? Mayor. So he's running for mayor currently. Is it just somebody that you know, or do you like him as a candidate and you're trying to support him? Because I'm impressed, and I'm bringing that up because I said I see like, oh, you don't agree with me, I hate you, I hope you die. You're like, no, there's a great candidate, you should check it out, see if you like him. And I think that, you know, I'm in Torrington a lot, so I heard the name before, but if I didn't know, I would have learned something new just from your post without having to say, oh, this guy's, you know, I like how you keep it neutral and positive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tell you. It's funny because we've talked a little bit about Facebook, and I must say I've met some really neat people locally through Facebook.
Yeah.
And I just, part of me looks at Facebook and just thinks, oh, it's just, you know, it's out there in space and it's not real, and it's very, you know, it can be an illusion, because sometimes people say, man, you hike everywhere. And it's like, no, I really don't. But when you look at my posts, you'd think that I was hiking the whole world, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
But I must say, I've met some wonderful people through Facebook, because sometimes you can get a connection, you know, through Facebook and then realize, oh, this is somebody in my town. Or, you know, it's happened where I've become friends with someone on Facebook and then realize, oh, you know, this is somebody who lives on my block or lives in my neighborhood. Like when I first met Joe Quirk, and we quickly discovered, wow, we're almost on the same street. We're just a couple of blocks away from each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, Steve is one of those people. You know, our paths were crossing through some different things in the community. And I just think he's got some good ideas, and I think Torrington is ready for a good change. And I think Steve is the guy to handle that. I really like the slate of Democrats that they have on there too. I think it's a lot of women that are running and younger people. So I think there's some good diversity on there too. So hoping that we have a good election. But yeah, I mean, you have to look at the problems, but you have to look at the solutions as well.
Yes.
And I think too often people just, you know, focus on the problems and the negativity of being stuck in those problems and being frustrated with those problems. But let's try to deal with the solutions and, you know, figure out what we do have in agreement, whether it's, you know, we agree with the food we eat or the music we listen to, or, you know, being out there in the community. So, yeah, try to stay positive for sure.
Well, no, that's great what you said, because I think too many politicians worry about more about blaming the other
Yeah.
person for the problem instead of trying to find a solution.
Solution.
And for me, what you just said, whenever I get into a debate or an argument with somebody, I'm like, you know what? There's so many other things we agree on. What kind of music do you like? What kind of movies do you like? What kind of food do you like? And we start talking about that, and all the anger just goes out the door because why do you even have to worry about who cares what I like? Who cares what you like? You're not going to change my mind. I'm not changing yours. Let's just move on and, you know, enjoy the things that we do have in common. So I see a lot of that, and I'm so past of trying to prove, because I always say, I'm not going to see something on Facebook and go, wow, I never looked at it that way. Thanks for shining light. You know what I mean? Like, for the most part, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have my belief, and it's not going to change just by somebody, especially in a negative way. I'm going to say, no. So that's why I love, and you're great at promoting your friends, as I mentioned before. Another friend I want to talk about, because I want to see if I can get him on the show too. His name is Eric Hahn. He does.
Eric.
Wonderful Connecticut. Something like that.
Yeah. Connecticut Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, Eric is another one. Yeah, he's another one. You know, met him through Facebook, and it's like, oh, okay, he's from Northfield. That's great. Yeah, wonderful guy. He's a nurse by training, but he's a real neat photographer. And he started this Facebook page, Connecticut Wonderful, just to help create a place where people can talk about wonderful things in Connecticut, restaurants they've gone to, shows they've seen, businesses that they've gone to. And it's amazing because, you know, Connecticut's a small state, but it's a big state too. So a lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to be up in, you know, the Litchfield area next weekend. You know, what should I do? And all of a sudden people will chime in about, you know, good restaurants in Litchfield County. Or, you know, I have little kids. What should I do with them next weekend? Or, you know, I'm interested in this. Where could I, you know, enjoy this activity in different parts of Connecticut? Yeah. So Eric has, put together this webpage, and it's really cool because he's, you know, again, super positive, and he talks about, you know, fun things to do in Connecticut. And, you know, he's kind of like this big traffic director because all these people, you know, come in and share their things, and he kind of, you know, gets them in the right direction. And he also goes to the different events and he takes pictures and things like that. And he's a cheerleader for people. One of the really neat people that I've met, you know, through Facebook, but they're real honest to God people that I can bump into, you know, in town and, you know, all around. Eric, he'll definitely come on your show for sure. You definitely can get him on.
Conrad. I met Eric at one of the John Brown hike.
Oh yeah. And he's always got his camera, and he takes a million pictures, and good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, you mentioned Litchfield. I mean, I'm just naming two things in Litchfield alone. That one little area right by the green, you have White Memorial Foundation on one side, you have the Lords of Litchfield on the other. And anytime you mention a town, and that's why I love his website, because I said, oh, wow, I got to check this place out. I want to find out what's going on here. So I think anybody who's interested in, because I hate when people say, oh, there's nothing to do in Connecticut. There are a lot of things to do. All you have to do is open your eyes and look. I actually like when people say, oh, I'd rather live in a city. I would hate to live in a city. I love living in the suburban area and then driving to the city and coming back to this area, because I'm more of a, like, just, I like being in the woods, or, you know, not like a old Leatherman. I'm not that hard, but, you know, somewhere like, instead of like, instead of the hustle and bustle, I like to come back and taking a nice hike. And so I think Connecticut is great. I love Connecticut. I've lived here my whole life, and there's so many things to do. Now, I just want to ask you about one more thing too, because I'm not sure if this is the same thing. I was doing some research on you, and it says you also helped with the American Mural Project. Is that the same one that with the 39 Martin Luther King, or is that a different one?
No, different. No, I volunteered at American Mural Project, another cool place up in Winstead. The artist has created this incredible mural that's several stories high, and I don't know how long, but it's in an old factory building right next to Whiting Mills. And they had a benefit gala to raise some money, and they had Billy Collins, the poet, come in and do a poetry reading, which was really nice. And I volunteered there, you know, directing the foot traffic over at Whiting Mills, where they had a special event there. American Mural Project, definitely Google them, look them up. They've been giving guided tours, which has been really nice because there's a short video and they'll explain the piece of art. But it's really neat because it focuses on the American worker and all different types of jobs and all different kinds of workers. And it's just this beautiful, huge piece of artwork dedicated to the American worker. And I think anybody can take a look at it and just be amazed by it and be intrigued by it. So definitely check them out. And while you're there, yeah, check out Whiting Mills also, because there are a whole bunch of really cool artists and businesses.
That's a nice place too. I've been there.
Shops.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
really nice.
Really nice. Beautiful.
Now with the mural, do they have different artists working on it, or do they have certain people that say, all right, I'm going to do this and put this?
No, it's one single artist, and
Okay.
I don't remember her name. I don't remember the artist's name, but she's been working on it for years, and it's just a phenomenal project. Of course, she has a team with her, and every section of the painting has a whole bunch of stories of how it came to be. The last time I was there, she was telling a story about how she has these, these pieces are just huge, and it's you really need professional construction workers to move them and make sure that it goes up safe and it's held up there safely. And she's like, okay, so here I am, I'm an artist and I'm working with these hard hat, typical construction guys, and yet they're learning more about art, and they're like, why don't you try this and do this? And she's like, wait a minute, you guys are construction guys, just put this where we tell you to put this, and so it's just really neat that, construction guys can become artists, by hanging out here and working with her.
True.
See what happens when you're exposed to a little bit of culture?
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
For you, speaking of artists, do you have a favorite artist? For me, there's so many different types of art I like, but I love the work of Salvador Dali. I just think it's so.
Okay.
So for you, do you have a favorite, or do you just like all different types?
Yeah, Salvador Dali is definitely a favorite. And all different, I guess it's like my musical taste. I got all different artistic tastes. I know down in New Haven in the British Art Gallery, or the Yale Art Gallery of British Art, some beautiful work by JMW Turner, who does some amazing things. Wadsworth Athenaeum in Hartford, loaded with all sorts of stuff. I find myself, I'm becoming more interested in contemporary art lately. I used to have a real hard time with like modern art, like, when they just show you, one color on a big, square. I don't get it. But there's a lot of really cool. Yeah. Like I don't understand Jackson Pollock. I really don't get it. But there's a lot of other contemporary art that just is neat, is really neat. A number of years ago, my wife and daughter and I went to MoCA, Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. And it's this huge factory. So they have these really big spaces inside. And there was this one exhibit. All it was, if you can imagine, this giant box, like a giant dumpster. It was the size of a dumpster hanging from the ceiling. And the dumpster would then, the bottom of the dumpster would open up. Thousands of ping pong balls would shower down,
Love it.
collect on the floor, and then they would be sucked up into this tube where the doors would close on the dumpster and they would go back into the dumpster. So every 4 minutes, the doors would open, thousands of ping pong balls would fall out, and then they would be sucked back up into the dumpster like every 5 minutes. And it's like, all right, is this really art? It's not a painting of the Mona Lisa, it's not a sculpture, but it's this really cool thing. And there's this anticipation of it opening up. There's the sound of the first few, there's the sound of all of them, there's the sound of the last couple of them, the noise it makes when it goes back up. what does it mean? What does it mean? Oh, it's like a cloud. It's like a cloud of rain or whatever. I don't know. It's a cycle. I don't know, but it was art. It was art, and it was just a cool thing. So yeah, so I guess I don't necessarily have a favorite artist, but I love seeing things that are like, wow, this is cool. This is art, or maybe it isn't art, but I don't know. It's kind of neat anyway.
Well, a great place to see something like that is Real Artways. I'm not sure if they do it too much anymore because of COVID, but they have the art gallery outside, and they show independent movies and documentaries, which I used to go there all the time. And I used to think the same thing too. It's like, really, is this art? But I mean, to each of them, here's what I hate. And I want to bring this up because I was talking about this. I had an artist on the show one time, and we were talking about that. There's a documentary called Who the Bleep is Pollock? And this woman bought a painting at a tag sale for $5. And people said, I think that's a Jackson Pollock. So throughout the whole documentary, they're trying to figure out if it's a real Pollock. Yeah. So you have all these historians like, that's not a Pollock. Pollock would never have the red crisscrossing the blue like that. It's like, you have no idea. What you're like, then somebody said, I don't like that. You just don't understand art, my friend. Yeah, okay. That's where I get mad. Like, sniffing the wine, like, oh, wine is not my type. I think people can not like things and like things, and everything isn't for everybody. So just because you don't like something doesn't mean you don't understand art. So I think you get something the condescending people involved in that. But I thought the documentary was full of that. It was funny because she was this woman from Nashville, I think it was somewhere down south, and she knew nothing. By the end of the movie, she's like, I'm not going to sell this for $15 million. I'm holding out for more money. And that's how the documentary ended. Like, wow, now you're an art connoisseur.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's Who the Bleep is Pollock. Another one I went to recently in Boston, it was the Van Gogh exhibit. Anybody who has a chance to see it was
I saw some of your pictures there. Yeah.
It was immersive, and the one of my favorite parts there's different rooms. The last part was a virtual reality room where you actually go into paintings, and it's so realistic. People were falling off the chair because you sit in a chair. Every once in a while, like when I floated into one of his Starry Starry Night painting, I had to put my feet on the ground. I thought I was gonna fall. It's if you have a chance to check it out.
Yeah, I've heard about it, and I saw your pictures, and I had mixed feelings because part of me was like, well, that's not how you should experience a Van Gogh. That's not Van Gogh. He did these paintings that were this big or whatever. But then part of me is like, but if it's a new way to look at Van Gogh, what's wrong with that? So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by it, and I think I would like to check that out because a place like Mass MoCA, it's not about looking at a flat painting on a wall. It's about walking through artwork or walking around artwork. And that's, so much different than just looking at, a gallery with flat paintings on the wall. Nothing wrong with that, but art can be so much more than that. I'm intrigued by the Van Gogh.
Yeah, I think you would like it. I really very much enjoyed it. I would want to go again. That's how much I liked it. I didn't know. Before I went, I saw a documentary on him just so I get an idea of what his life was like. And what's so sad? All these artists died penniless, and it wasn't until after they died that's when they became famous. And it's funny because there's a Seinfeld episode where there was an artist and he was dying. So George bought the painting thinking it would be worth money. He ended up living. No, this is worth nothing. So you hear all these stories about Van Gogh shot himself. And then, Pollock was killed, I think, driving his car drunk. I mean, all these people never saw a penny until after. I think even people like Mozart died penniless. I mean, he liked the parties. That's another story. But still, it's a shame that I wish that they were able to see some of their success and the impact that they made on the public years after they were gone.
Yep. Very true.
Conrad, it was great talking to you. I'm so glad I had a chance to have you on the show. Wibo, thanks. Before you leave, is there anything that you want to discuss or promote?
No, I just, Saturdays I'm on WAPJ 2:00 to 4:00. Don't touch my stuff. Play all different kinds of music, take requests also. I think that music can really unite us. Music can definitely lift us, improve our moods, help us live longer, make us feel good. And the community thing, hearing people call up and request songs and stuff like that. Yeah, so definitely give WAPJ a listen. And then, yeah, support local artists wherever you can, whether those artists are, busking on the streets of Torrington or, playing at different restaurants. They're working behind the counters at all the different restaurants and businesses and such. So yeah, get out into your community, support people however you can, whatever little you can give. It's appreciated by the different artists and the different business people, downtown and all around. So yeah, get out there and support the arts.
T-Town.
Right. And then while you're doing that, go to Toothpick, pick something up for Wibo. He'll be sitting on the street right outside WAPJ. I'm sure he'll want some food.
Listening to the music for free.
Free.
I tell you, that's the only time I see Wibo sitting down, because he's always on the move. He's always on the go. He's always going somewhere.
Yeah.
I make this comment about him all the time. I say, Wibo, I've known him for several years now. I met him when I was a guest on his public access show at the time. But every time I talk to him, I learn something new about him, because he's so modest. He does not brag about all the different things he does. He just does it because he feels passionate about it. I'm like, wait, oh, you're part of that now? Oh, you help out this group? You're almost every time I talk to him, I learn something new about him. So yeah, he's amazing. So see, very humble.
Very humble, very humble. You gotta be humble.
Well, thank you very much, Conrad. Speaking of humble and thinking of very talented,
yeah,
I really do appreciate having you on the show. I know that you're very busy and you have a lot of things going on, so you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate Rich and Wibo, and this was a very fun hour. I enjoyed it a lot.
It was fun.
You guys.
That wraps up another episode of Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. A huge thanks goes out to our guest, Conrad Sienkiewicz, for taking time out of his very busy schedule to be on our show. And I would also like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Enjoy your day, everybody.
Good night.
From the frenetic mind of author Rich Sear. 5 terrifying short stories, now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.